Hi there, everyone. Welcome to our Project Echo people. My name is Pam Yankelov, and I'm the Director of Research and Evaluation here at the University of Louisville Traeger Institute. And our Project Echo, Care of Older Adults, is presented by the University of Louisville Traeger Institute in partnership with the Kentucky Coalition for Healthy Communities. We are so glad you're here. So we do ask that if you can go on and turn on your video, and we ask that you go on and mute yourself. If you have a comment or a question, feel free to go on and just use the chat or unmute. If you're having difficulty with your sound, please go on and click on the arrow next to your microphone and go on and test your system. We just like being a community here, and if you can turn on your video, please do. That is okay, Gabrielle. So if you can go and add your name and your organization to your little video square, two ways of doing that. You can go on and click on the three little dots in your video square and a little dialog box will come down and it says rename, and you can go on and rename and add yourself, your organization, and even your pronouns. Another way to do it is go on and click on participants, which is in the lower kind of left hand side, and go and click on that, find yourself, and then go on and rename yourself that way. So if you're unfamiliar with the University of Louisville Traeger Institute Republic Bank Foundation Optimal Aging Clinic, our mission is to help individuals optimally age throughout their lifespan. Our hope is to expand their health span. So we are a workforce development hub. So we have several grants that support interdisciplinary care to older adults, and our focus is to integrate geriatrics into primary care and integrate primary care or behavioral health into primary care, as well as community paraprofessionals into primary care. So we have several workforce development hub grants, and we also try to transform our practice, our clinical practice, so that we can be more age-friendly and trauma-informed. And lastly, we're trying to transform our communities. The idea is that we are trying to kind of change the minds, the hearts, and the knowledge of the individuals that are working in clinical spaces. And then we're trying to actually change the systems as well as we're trying to change the communities in which we live. And our Project Echo is in partnership with the Kentucky Coalition for Healthy Communities. So I'm going to go on and pass the mic to Mona Huff.
Thank you, Pam. Welcome, everybody. We are glad you're here. And as the Kentucky Coalition for Healthy Communities, we want to help create community support systems for our adults in our partnership, our older adults. With existing local coalitions and organizations, we believe it takes a community. And then we also want to help our workforces and our community members to be able to empower our communities to become healthier. And we provide different trainings and different educational events in order to do that you'll hear a little bit more about after the presentation. Again, we're glad you're here.
Thank you, Mona. So our Project Echo is driven by really two frameworks. One is the American College of Lifestyle Medicine framework that focuses on 6 pillars of health. One is focused on that food is medicine, exercise is medicine, that sleep is medicine, avoiding risky substances is medicine, social contact that is positive is medicine, and managing our stress is medicine. And the other framework is the 4Ms framework. The 4Ms framework is from the Institute for Healthcare Improvement. The idea is that we want to make sure that we ask individuals what matters most to them, and we really work on health through that lens of what matters most to them. We also look at medications, and we try to deprescribe when we can, looking for those risky medications that could interfere with the other Ms, such as mobility. The idea is to have daily mobility goals, and then mentation, which constitutes our mind and our mood, making sure that we are really attending to those types of things as it relates to depression or delirium or dementia. So here is our schedule for our Project Echo, and we are here on February 20th, and we're going to be focusing on the power of purpose and social connections and aging well. In March, we're focusing on suicide in later life, recognizing risk and responding with compassion. In April, we're going to be focusing on gardening for health, which constitutes movement, nutrition, and connection with nature. May will be focused on pulling back the sheets on older adult sexuality. June, we do another focus on nutrition and social connection, noticing we're kind of connecting the different pillars of lifestyle medicine. And in July, we'll be focusing on comprehensive management of complex voiding dysfunction. So if you haven't signed up for all these, I think if you've signed up in iEcho, you will have already signed up for all of them. Is that right? Justin's giving me the thumbs up. All right. So if you're unfamiliar with the Project Echo platform, it's been around since the early 2000s it was founded by Sanji Arora. He is a hepatitis C expert. He's an MD in New Mexico. And he developed this telementoring platform because he was noticing that patients were coming 200 to 300 miles to him to be able to, use his knowledge on the hepatitis C diagnosis that they had received. And he said he wasn't really creating capacity. So what he decided to do was develop this telementoring approach so that he can move knowledge and not patients and build capacity at a local level. So project echoes in general have a rhythm to them where there is a didactic, then there's some case-based learning. And we have in our project echo, we're focusing on the best practices and interdisciplinary team care. So the project echoes all around the world right now, and our project echo, I think, is going into its 8th year. Is that right, Justin? Yeah. All right. If you would like to receive a attendance certificate for the 1.5 hours that you are with us in this session, please do so by completing the evaluation at the end of the session. And our community health workers and our social workers must complete the evaluation in order to receive that continuing education that we have available to you. Our community health workers will be receiving 1.5 CEUs if you're a certified community health worker from the Kentucky Office of Community Health Workers. And we have Brescia University has provided from the Kentucky Board of Social Work to social workers to receive CEUs. And you can learn more about Brescia's online continuing education by using this QR code. So today we have Kristine Holbrook, who's going to be talking about the power of purpose and social connections in aging well. So let me tell you a little bit about Kristine. So Kristine, the founder of Clear Sky Wellness Coaching, helps individuals discover their why. With 20 plus years in executive health leadership, she now inspires purposeful living through coaching and workshops. Having served Fortune 500 clients and their families, she has witnessed firsthand how purpose impacts health and overall well-being. Thank you, Kristine, for coming. We're so excited to have you and hear your didactic today.
I am so excited to join you. So first and foremost, thanks so much to your team for inviting me. And just like was mentioned, I have spent the majority of my career in the health and well-being space. And as I spent so many years in that space, and as I talked with both employees as well as retirees that we were really servicing, I continue to go back to this gap, this sense of kind of what's the point of it all? Where do I bring meaning and value to the world around me? And we started to do more and more programming to help people to really connect with that spark. And so today, the focus is going to be all about the power of purpose and social connections and aging well. And since I know that we are all individually focused on dedicating ourselves to that aging population in various ways, and we know because of our work well-being really requires looking at the whole person. And way too often we tend to disregard, we tend to glean over, we skim over what we talk about purpose. And so we're really going to zoom in on purpose and we're going to zoom in on social connection. And we're also going to talk about that really powerful synergy that exists between the two. So when we think about purpose, I think in the past, earlier on in my career, in those 20 years ago, we would really look at purpose more as what I would call a nice to have, kind of a feeling, just a nice to have feeling. However, I love that over those 20 years, it is now what we would consider a highly researched topic. There are hard, measurable data that is coming out time and time again, continuous data that is highly researched from high peer-reviewed papers, subject matter experts, from some of the most respected entities, which really helps us to recognize that no, it's just not that nice to have. It truly is what I would consider an imperative. So we're going to talk about how cultivating that sense of purpose, what I like to call that spark that gets someone excited to start their day, how it helps to combat isolation, it helps to deepen bonds, it helps to build a foundation for what I like to call meaningful living, which, as we know, meaningful living is something that is very individual. And that's another element of purpose. It's not what someone else says we should have, it's what we find within ourselves. And so, since I'll look at us as catalysts for healthy aging, I'll also share just a few simple and some practical questions that we can use to integrate into our practices when we're talking with the people that we're trying to help them to, shall we say, build on purpose into their lives. So let's start just level set a little bit about purpose. So when we look at purpose, again, we're not talking about that vague feeling here. What we are talking about are two tangible things, and that is our contribution, so our unique contribution, and the impact on those contributions on others. And what we have known through time is that when we're able to direct those contribution and those impact towards others, that it is very, very powerful. So purpose in itself is powerful, but when it's directed at other individuals, that's where that connection comes into play. So when we think about purpose, just some additional layers of insight or context, if you will, look at it as the conviction that our personal efforts have value, that we believe, we feel that what we do matters, that it matters to others, that matters, again, those that we're trying to impact with our purpose. It tends to function as what I like to call that internal catalyst. It's like a spark. And a lot of times when you read about purpose, you'll hear or read about it lighting people up. It's that spark that gets somebody excited to wake up, ready to engage, which is so vital at any age, but especially as we continue to age. And without that spark, without that inspiration, without that passion or the motivation, it is so easy to become disengaged, essentially go into what I like to call automatic living, kind of living on autopilot. Purpose also tends to function as a mental roadmap. And when you think about a roadmap, whether you pick up your phone and you plug in where your destination is, it really does provide a sense of direction. It helps us to navigate complexity, and I'll talk about that a little bit later. So that as we age, the complexities tend to mount up, right? We have more that sometimes we're navigating. When you think about an injury, injuries that are hard to bounce back from, sleep issues, loss. And when we think about loss, a lot of times we tend to think of loss of a loved one, and surely loss of a loved one falls into this category. But you can also think of loss of community. If you have a move, a relocation to downsize, or even a move into a different community where you get more support, medical support, for example. So, again, when you think about purpose, our goal is to help them to find that reason for being or to reconnect with their purpose so that we don't just exist, that we're thriving. So, optimally, we're trying to get to that thriving state. So, I talked about there's hard data, there is measurable data. And just like we talked about in the research, purpose is measurable, it's protective, and it's central to thriving. So when you look at this list here, this is a pretty heavy slide. These are all researched benefits. These aren't what I consider, these are nice to have. These are highly researched. It helps to provide psychological fuel. And when you're thinking about psychological fuel, think of things like clarity, confidence, focus, direction. It also tends to provide us with energy, greater energy and motivation. And that list goes on and on and on, right? And you see social connection there as well. And when you think about the biological benefits, what just a few of the studies, again, it helps to protect against memory problems. It links to healthy behaviors. We tend to engage in healthier behaviors when we have that sense of purpose and connection with others. And when you talk about those healthier behaviors, certainly we notice a boost in physical activity, so reduction in physical inactivity, and it helps to improve against sleep issues. I used to actually go around and teach related to individuals with sleep issues. And so definitely it's a protective mechanism when we talk about sleep. And I think a really interesting study that I noted here is one of the JAMA study that came out in 2019, and it talked about that those with that high sense of purpose, a strong sense of purpose, live longer, healthier lives. And so, one of my, I think a statement that really sticks for me is that purpose isn't just about adding years to life, it's about adding life to years. So it is a modifiable risk factor. When we all talk about the world of modifiable risk factors, I like to look at that as a modifiable risk factor that we actually have the power to influence when we are working with the individuals we're trying to help. So let's move on to social connection or connectedness. And so I'll kind of share it in the way that I liked it, that it makes sense for me based on what I do in my profession. So when I look at connectedness, it's really about how we belong, how we share, and even how we sustain our purpose through the bonds with others and our environment. And I'll talk about the environment in just a minute. Because if you think about purpose as the spark, right? The spark, what kind of the catalysts for us to take action. Think of connectedness as the oxygen that keeps it burning. Because remember, purpose is typically directed at others. So again, that spark, that connection from purpose, and the oxygen coming from that social connection. So when we think about connectedness, it's about nurturing those supportive relationships. You know, it's certainly family, it's friends, those in the community. And when we're able to cultivate that sense of belonging by engaging in the larger community and even engaging with nature, it is powerful. And it's really interesting because I think of, I recently experienced loss myself, which I'll talk about a little bit later. However, sometimes it's really important to, shall we just say, step out, to not be isolated, and to help you to feel regrounded and regain perspective by recognizing how you fit into the bigger picture and to reconnect with everything else around us in nature. It definitely is a powerful, shall we say, powerful mechanism to create calm within ourselves. And so that inner self connectedness is also about that internal practice, the active use of what we like to call empathy and compassion and gratitude, and sometimes connectedness, being out with others and being out in the community, being out in nature, helps us to face some of those life challenges so that we feel that we're not necessarily so alone. So I know that we talked about purpose and we talked about some of the research related to purpose and connectedness. And let's just hit on some of the key findings related to connectedness. How powerful was this that in 2023, the US Surgeon General, I'll say, issued a wake-up call, not just a reminder, but a wake-up call that in practice, we're facing a national emergency of disconnection. My daughter has a master's of public health, undergrad in neuroscience and biology. And for her, she said, Mom, this is essentially a public health epidemic. This is what Megan says to me. It is. And when you look at some of the data, it is like startling. Social isolation increases mortality risk by 30%, as much as heavy smoking. And there was a study that came out, I'll show you a slide a little bit later, that's the Social Connection Index. 52% of adults are now considered at risk or vulnerable. That over half of our population lacks meaningful relationship support and places to belong. Powerful data. And when you think about the aging population, and when we think about all that research that I talked about, it definitely can be a silent driver behind what I'll call cognitive decline, heart disease, depression. And so again, think about your role as a catalyst, okay, for purpose and connection. So that really leads to what I like to think about, this connection point, the synergy between the two. Pretty simple slide. But when you bring them together, it is a really powerful synergy for healthy aging. So remember, if you think about purpose being that spark and connectedness being the oxygen that keeps it burning, when we live with our sense of purpose, we naturally seek people to share it with. And remember how I continue to say, purpose is so powerful when it's directed at others. And when we see how our contribution positively impacts others in ways that are meaningful to us, again, that's that synergy, that moment between the two. I like to think of it as a self-sustaining cycle. That's a hard thing to say, self-sustaining cycle. Purpose drives connection, and connection reinforces purpose. So I always like to go back to the research. And the reason I do is because I think for so long, people continue to feel that purpose was a nice to have. And so let's talk a little bit about the research again, just to ground ourselves. The positive impacts to the mind and body are profound. Okay. At a high level, we talk about cognitive resilience and brain health. It isn't just about helping us to stay sharp as we continue to age, but research shows that that combination of social engagement and goal-directed activity, which purpose is goal-directed activity, it can delay the onset of dementia. When you think about physical vitality and longevity, when people feel connected and purposeful, they tend to have that higher physical vitality. They move more, their sleep improves, and data shows that it impacts longevity. And then we can go to stress and emotional well-being. It acts as a shock absorber, the two together, a shock absorber for life's stressors. Remember all those changes that we experience at any time in life, and definitely among the aging population, where our sense of identity can just, be so impacted with changes in our lives. And so it tends to impact that emotional resilience. Remember that on that slide, resilience being one of the benefits. It lowers inflammation and cortisol levels and so much more. So I would, encourage us almost to think of purpose as an intervention. When we think about, do we have an opportunity to kind of open the conversation about purpose with the people that we're trying to help, the people that we serve? How can it help them to regain momentum? And how can it help them to grow, right? Because something is always changing. And when we talk about growth, it's spreading our wings, it's having greater impact. And when we think about all the changes that we're navigating in life, okay, we talked about that injury, relocation, loss. It absolutely can feel overwhelming, isolating, you feel lonely, you can lose your sense of self. You say, who am I anymore? My roles have changed. The people I interact with have changed. What is the point of it all? These are the types of things that I hear with the people that I help. And I hear so often is, I've lost my sense of purpose. And so, personal story, I shared with Justin and the team that, I would share this if I felt comfortable. And so I'm gonna go for it. I live in Florida. Long story short, if y'all remember the two back-to-back hurricanes that just kind of blazed through the areas, impacted my community quite a bit, Clearwater area in Florida. And my husband and I were under a mandatory evacuation. We couldn't come home. And as we were away, we are big pickleball players. And as we were away, we were playing pickleball with my father to cool down. He's 84 years old. My father's still on the court playing pickleball. We were out playing pickleball. We left the court during cool down. My husband went down. Being in the health and wellness arena, I thought he fainted. I tried to administer CPR. This is what my training has provided to me. We lost my husband that day. And I will say, oh my goodness, certainly it doesn't mean that I didn't feel overwhelmed because I have a strong sense of purpose. Certainly it doesn't mean that I didn't question my identity or question everything. However, when I talk about it being an anchor, when things are turbulent, even if before, I did programming for people because I recognized the value it brought to them when I talked with people and helped them to reconnect with purpose, boy, did I really feel the impact of that strong sense of purpose. It has been an anchor. It has provided that clarity and direction for me when it's like you just don't know which direction you're going. And the most beautiful thing of it all, like, look at this. I'm talking with you all today. This has connected me to widows who say, I have lost my sense of purpose. I have lost my drive to live. I don't know why I'm still here. And so when we think about as we age, we will lose friends. We may have a housing change. We may lose some of our physical abilities. So much. And when you go back to the research, not the nice to haves, but when we go back to the research on the benefits of purpose, I mean, it's there. And I'm living proof. So when we go back to what is the role that we can each individually play, let's go there next. Some real simple things. I'm just waiting for that next slide to pop up. There we go. I see it coming through. All right. So I know I go to research a lot because it helps to, I say, give us a direction, some grounding. Remember how I talked about that Connection in America report? So what I did is I just grabbed this quick screenshot from the report, readily available to download and go through and look at it. And I would highly recommend that you do that. Hard to see. However, I'm going to highlight just some of the specific barriers. I'm going to tease them out specific to people like having that sense of isolation, I'll say. I'm too tired or busy. I'm uncomfortable going alone. I don't know where to start. It's hard to share my true self. And so when you think of these, especially when you tease out some of them specifically, if we go back to the beginning of our conversation today, the beginning of what we kind of were focusing on, and you think about the benefits of purpose, well, that anchor that I just talked about, clarity, direction, focus, when you think about energy, when you think about motivation, when you have that sense of your contribution and the impact that it is having or can have on others, it tends to connect us with others, right? Purpose is in the service of others typically. And so you can start to see that synergy between purpose and social connection and how it helps to lower these barriers. Not all of them, but many of them. So food for thought there. And so let's talk about, well, I'll say just some of the simple things. A lot of people will say to me, well, Kristine, how do I get started? And oh, what questions should I ask? Or, oh, I'm not as skilled as you are in asking questions and reflecting on their questions, the coaching methodology. Um, it is about taking the first step. And when I say the first step, it's being a bit of an observer. And when you think about an observation, ignore the questions first. Don't even think about the questions first. But when you're engaging in a conversation with someone, and when you're talking with them and you notice they are slumped versus their shoulders elevate, they sit back a little bit straighter, they lean forward, body language. That's an example of a spark, someone being lit up. You may notice them smile. You may notice their eyes getting larger. So if you just think of what are some of the, I'll say, body language signs, those are some of them. When you listen, okay, you're observing, and now when you're listening, don't even listen to their words yet. When you hear that tone of voice pick up, when you hear that they're talking with a little bit faster pacing, if you will, Those are some ways that you can tell that, wow, I've connected with something that's important to this person. I've connected with something that gives them a little bit of a spark. I can sense some increased energy here. So then now let's pay attention to the questions. Okay. So again, it is not about getting the question right. It's about opening the conversation up. Okay. So one of them that I love, what are some of the things, the activities or the hobbies that you notice? Wow, just time goes by. You don't even notice how many minutes went by or even hours. And you look at the clock and you say, oh my goodness, I can't believe I was doing this for that long. So again, it's not about getting the perfect question. It's about just asking the questions to start the conversation. And so you say, well, what's the underlying reason for that type of question, Kristine? It's about helping to identify some of those passions. And a lot of people will say to me, I don't know what my passions are. Well, we can start with some of the things in their childhood that they used to do that they got excited about. And you may say, oh gosh, you used to build forts all the time as a kid. Really? What was it about the building forts that was interesting for you? So again, it's about connecting with something that they used to do or that they like to do. And don't put the pressure on the word passion. Okay, do me a favor. That's where interests are so valuable, and interests oftentimes lead to a passion. It's about experimenting. It's about trying different things. And a lot of people will say to me, well, Kristine, I commit to something and then I end up being committed to it for months and months on end. It's about dabbling in something, like micro experiments, if you will, micro experiences, if you will. Second question. If you had a day with no limits at all, you could do anything you wanted to do, what would you choose to spend your time on? Who might you spend your time with? And so that really helps to connect with what they value. And then, of course, someone can say, well, I can't do that anymore. What are the elements of those things that you sense that you still could do today? And another one, like looking back, what are some of the interests or some of the roles that you might like to connect with today that we can adapt for today? And so, again, these aren't really big questions. These are conversation openers, conversation starters, where you're then watching their body language, you're listening to their tone of voice, and yes, you're listening to their words. And so when they light up, consider that your anchor. That's the thing that you can start to talk with them a little bit more. And that's what I like to think of as that connection point to some of those other amazing resources that you are probably familiar with in your communities. Other people, services, volunteer opportunities, talking with some of the younger generations, you name it, the sky's the limit. And so hopefully I got you guys thinking, and hopefully we'll have some fun Q&A before we move on to, I know, some of the case studies that have been prepared for today. So any questions that you all might have for me?
Or anything that has resonated with you as Kristine is talking.
Kristen, one of the things that I was thinking about is some of my aging folks when I encourage them to go to the senior centers. And a lot of times their reaction is, oh, I went once and all they did was gossip, or all they did was play cards, or all they did was do bingo. How can one react to that to help them focus on the maybe one or two that are not doing that and start a new group with a new thoughts of what the senior center should
Yeah,
look like?
yeah, that's interesting because and that's a very real scenario, right? Is they go there, they had the courage to go and to try, and they realized that there was something that didn't work for them. And I think that's where maybe a little bit of, front end like researching in advance, what are some, certainly there's that element of the social environment, and then there's the element of the activities that might be available, Ramona, within that environment. And I think, the first thing is are there activities that those micro experiences where they're finding their tribe, if you will, people with common interests? Um, and we certainly know that even if it was a card club, for example, that they enjoyed, certainly there are certain personalities that may not be a fit. And so that's where, to your point, maybe there are other groups nearby. Um, Maybe it's a different group that they try out because unfortunately, sometimes there might not be a fit a person to person. So it is about recognizing that there isn't always going to be a fit and try again. What is it our parents used to say to us as we were younger? Try and try again. And sometimes it's hard to muster up the courage to try again. I recognize that.
Thank you. I think Melissa has a question. Melissa, can
Hey,
you
Melissa.
there you
I
go.
do. Thank you. So similar to Mona's question, how do you, um, if you're interested in ensuring that your community is aging friendly, let's say, how do you go about setting these things up that are of interest to older individuals? How do you identify, um, you know, what that might be? Like the person that goes in their card playing and bingo, there's just as many people that love that as hate that. um, so how do you gauge that need and how do you go about trying to provide those services within a community?
Yeah, and it's interesting because I used to work for the Department of the Army, and we had a very specific budget. I used to work for a hospital. We had a very specific budget, and then for corporations. And so I think that's part of the hard thing, Melissa, is the organizers only have certain fund towards some of these resources. And so, it's like with those dollars, I think it's getting when they are, and I'm going to go back from a business perspective first. I can't help but do that. From the business perspective, when are they open to looking at other opportunities with their budgetary dollars? When do they have to make those decisions by? And what are other resources with similar demographics throughout the nation that they can learn from those other communities so that when they're making a decision to shift how they use their dollars or add to their dollars, which sometimes it's, you don't necessarily get the addition, that it's less of a risk. And so sometimes I find that, yes, we want to add to offer more opportunities for our population. However, it's considered a risk to add because we're not sure that it's going to work. So how can we try it in smaller, less costly ways? And when I talk about costly ways, resources like us, each of us as individuals, we're a resource that when we put our efforts towards that, there's a cost to that, like a cost of time and so forth. So I think, I guess my answer would be, Melissa, would be how can we do some benchmarking against other communities to see what's working there to see about introducing it into our other communities? Does that answer your question?
Yeah, and I was thinking along that same line. So for instance, you're saying, and I'm thinking of my mother-in-law, she's probably in better shape than people 30 years younger than her. She is fantastic. But she does chair yoga and she is in a walking group and she's in a writing group. And, she was widowed 3 years ago and we were really worried about what would happen. But she has just become this butterfly. It's amazing. But her community offers those things. And
Mm,
so you're saying to kind of look at how they set theirs up from a business standpoint, because that is the bottom line,
it
and
is.
see about how to implement that other places.
And I love that you just shared about your mother. Thank you for doing that because, it's interesting because when we have this like crossroad, if you I don't know if I call it a crossroad. It's just this change, right? Um, the fact that she found something to, direct her energy towards that gave her energy. And the fact that she probably has found new purpose and connection because of that. That's such a perfect example. So thank you for sharing that, Melissa.
No problem. She's amazing.
She sounds like she's amazing.
There's a question and a few comments in the chat. A lot of the comments are sending you love and gratitude for sharing your story and connecting it to your topic today. Gabrielle, actually, I don't know if you want to jump on and ask your question or if you would like me to read it. Let's see if you can jump on.
Yeah, I can. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. So, my dad is getting a little older, and he's trying to make connections with my kids because they are teenagers at this point, so it's already hard enough to connect with them. But one thing that we constantly run into is the way that he speaks to us. It's very negative or condescending, and it can really irritate all of us. And we try to work with him, but it's like he doesn't really. He's like, well, that's just how I talk, and it's like, well, we got to work on that. And it's like, I don't know. It's just been a very big sense of frustration within my household. And I want to connect with my dad, and I want to play cards with him, and I want the kids to be there because he's not going to be here, and I want to have those good memories with him and everything. But it's just so hard, and I know it's like it's a me. I got to be like it's a me thing, and let it old dogs, new tricks, whatever. But I don't. I know that I don't know. I'm just not sure, and any kind of advice would be awesome and helpful.
Yeah, and somebody else may even want to weigh into based on their area of expertise. And Tiffany, I can just share from um, you're making me think of some conversations that I've had with folks that I've worked with that are in their 80s, right? And it was interesting because um, certainly from a coaching perspective, we can't coach someone that isn't ready to be coached. Someone won't change that isn't ready to change. And when we talk about change, it doesn't mean like change as a whole. It could be change on one aspect of that relationship, right? I think about an individual that I worked with, 81 years of age, and he said, I can't believe I'm working with you where I want to reconnect with my purpose because I feel like I've got a lot of steam in the engine still and I have a lot to give. And I love my grandkids. And yet, kind of this, what you just reminded me, which is why my mind went there. I feel like they're not listening to me. And as we were talking, Tiffany, um, this person would tend to say, well, you should do this, you should do this, you need to do this next. And in the conversation, we were able to pause and talk about values. So the things that this person valued, long story short, I know this sounds like a long story. Long story short, what this person valued was felt like had a lot to offer and wanted to tell us all before he was no longer with us.
Mm.
And so pausing to kind of ask, what are the reasons? I never say why, right? Because why causes us to feel like we have to justify our stance and why we do things. But what is it about? Or, what do you find you're trying to communicate? And so by my asking questions a little differently, this person was able to say, oh my gosh. So we started to practice the next time you talk with your grandkids, how might you approach it differently? And do you know, he came back and said, oh my gosh, I'm listening better. And I am actually doing like asking questions to open up the conversation, which means that I'm feeling a stronger bond with my grandkids. And so I guess the point is sometimes it's instead of us, I'm not saying you're asking why, but sometimes us asking questions to understand the reasons why they approach things a certain way without asking why can give us insights and provide your dad with an insight potentially on how his words are impacting others.
Okay, um, so it's hard to do that because he doesn't listen. How can I? How can I? I guess just I need to be more patient. I know that much, and then like, I don't know.
I
So
have a
just
suggestion, if I may.
rephrase stuff. Yeah, go for it.
Sure. Okay. And this is going to sound hokey, but it was so awesome. Um, my grandmother, I had a class, and I had to interview someone in older stage of life, and I picked my grandmother because I thought she would be the less offended by some of the questions. Um, anyway, I learned so much more about my grandmother than I ever knew, and her values and her opinions that she didn't speak up about. And so, maybe, long story short here, maybe one of the things that your grandkids can do is come up with some questions about things that they struggle with or things that's in their life right now, and ask, even if it's political or if it's at school or whatever, and pose those questions to your dad. How did you handle? Did you go through this? How did you handle it? And then at the end, one of the things I did was put together a PowerPoint about my grandmother's
Wonderful.
life and showed that to her. And she was said, I didn't know I did all of that. And so it was so connecting, and it was a physical memento for people in our family and things that we didn't know about her. And she was fantastic anyway, but we were so in awe of her. And so that's just a suggestion I had. I had to do it, but it was the one of the best things I've ever done in my life.
I like that because my son is he does school from home. My youngest one does right now, so like that could
Oh,
be like a fun little at home project for him to do. And they're the ones that like clash the most too. So that's kind of like perfect. Like like
mm,
Parker will hear Grandpa start talking and he's like, "Oh, I gotta go," and he'll just go to his room. And I'm like, "Dude, like, it's just yeah, that's an awesome idea. I like that. Thank you so much."
That is so awesome. That's a great idea. What a wonderful gift that you'd have for generations to come too.
that's right. Thank you, Gabriel, for the question, and Melissa for the ideas. Tiffany, would you like to jump on and ask a question? Share a comment?
Hi, yeah. I would like to make a comment, and I think some of the question has already been answered by those who came before, and I appreciate everything that's been shared. I'm finding that individuals, because I'm a part of other conversations in some circles or whatever, in which I'm continuously hammering the concept of engaging in community because we all, because of the value that we can find in one another. And as time goes on, it seemed to be a younger demographic. I think of myself as young, but I'll be 60 this year. And I'm finding individuals of my age making the statements, um, I'm too old. I'm too old to meet people. I'm too old to make new friends. And I just don't want to be bothered. With some individuals, however, it could be that they found that people, whether it was partners or the job that they worked or, found a lot of stress, in their environment or their family. And so now they just don't want to be bothered in their older years or something. They don't want to worry about contributing or anything like that. But when you're talking about people who are my age, they're just a few, not a whole lot. But it is really, really concerning because, particularly for people like me who really need community. I don't have any children. I've never been married. And so I'm very, very appreciative of those that are surrounding me, those that I'm a part of a church community, and I'm going to school and I interact with you guys, and that's great. Here's my other question: are there other, particularly for the individuals that feel that they may not have much to contribute simply because they don't have a vehicle, they don't have a car, they don't have these, so they like to be able to maybe get out, but they just can't go like they would, or they don't have a lot of resources or something along that line. Um, what other practical things can we do in order to make sure that, those who are older are engaged, that they actually can, if they want to. Your story about you and your father's relationship, and how that they understand they may not want to be listen, they may not want to listen or whatever. But for those who actually do, how can we, I guess as a community, and me, I guess as an individual, what can be done on, I guess, an individual level in order to kind of help these individuals make sure that they remain connected?
Yeah. So Tiffany, quick question for you. So thank you. That's a great. So your scenario is there are folks that are saying, nah, I don't have a need anymore. It's kind of like I'm past that period. I don't need that in my life right now. And yet, and then there are individuals that do recognize the value, and you're saying they recognize the value, they want to be connected, but or and not but
Mm-hmm.
and there are
Right.
challenges. There are maybe challenges of transportation. So
Mhm.
there are definite barriers, like real barriers. I
Yeah.
suppose with
And
this group, my gosh, amazing
and
resources
some of
here.
these individuals, I'm sorry, I don't mean to interrupt. And some of these individuals, that they're great people. You talk to them one on one, that they've got something to contribute, but because of
Mhm.
past hurt, because of betrayal, because of being dumped on for whatever reason, they've developed a mistrust of people overall, and they kind of paint everybody with the same kind of wide swath or whatever. I don't want to be bothered because, I'm good by myself over here, whatever. When good and well that they've got something to contribute, they have something they have something to share, and they're great personality, other than the fact that they may be a bit
Yeah.
act like, a bit of a butthole every now and again. But I mean, I'm not saying that about everybody, but I mean, what practical stuff that we could do in order to kind of engage and to kind of encourage and that type of thing. That's
You know,
all.
you know
Thank
how I
you.
said earlier? Oh no, that's good clarification. Thank you. And you know how I said earlier? I'm brainstorming here. Okay, when I said earlier about um, you can't coach someone that doesn't want to be coached, and I just use the word coached, but you can't change someone that wants to be changed. You can't help to expand someone beyond their comfort zones that doesn't want to be expanded beyond their comfort zone. Like, yeah, I can continue to. So I think when we think about coaching, a lot of times we talk about stages of change. Oh, there you are. You just shifted on my screen. It's like, where'd Tiffany go? The stages of change. And so I think some of it is when you think about pre-contemplation, contemplation, and where people are starting to get more ready to do something, how we're listening for certain words. I might, I could, I'm getting ready to, I will. Those are all different words. And if you look at kind of the trans theoretical model, if you think it's Prochaska stages of change, if you look at some of those models, it helps to provide some of the words to listen for and some resources you might provide at the different levels that might help to shift their readiness. Doesn't mean they're going to be ready. Okay. However, I think the point is, I used to work with an organization and they used to say, Tiffany, right place, right time. And so I think for us is making the resource available. And the resource might be us being available when they're ready, continuing to let them know that we are here for them when they are ready. And it might be an invitation to dabble their toes in the water just a tad. Quick, short interaction with something where they start to say, oh, that was kind of nice. And so, it really does go back to a person's readiness from my perspective, or purely from a coaching perspective. And I'll ask any others. So many people on this call that have great input. What would you add to that?
I have something. I think that brings us back to like the whole purpose thing, like finding something that they enjoy or what have you, and then like maybe finding like I don't know, like if it's someone you're close to, I mean, you're talking to them enough to where they're like, nah, I don't need that, you know. Maybe like get them, find something that's like she said, short, like a little micro gathering or something, a little meeting. Like, I mean, I've been in the recovery rooms and stuff. Like they're like an hour long. You get to meet a lot of people who's been through similar situations, things like that. They have dances, they have get-togethers, they have like grill outs, stuff like that. Maybe find something along those lines in time and like amount of people wise, so they're not overwhelmed with the large numbers and stuff. And then I mean the best safest bet is always like involve food with it, because even the grumpiest, most I'm on my own person is always down to eat some food, you know? So just little things like that could help. And you know, just kind of being persistent. Like that's one thing like I struggle a lot with, like getting out and hanging out with my friends, or like keeping those connections that I get. Like I'm even stuck at like texting people back. But like the fact that my friends still like only a select few, but they don't give up. Like I'll get a random message on Facebook from my friend of 20 years, like, hey, and she'll send me a funny video. Like it's just those little tiny, like never like give up on them. That's the biggest thing. Like always let them know, like, hey, we're thinking about you. We want to see you do cool, you know, you want to come with. I found this. It might pique your interest. So, you know, something like that. But
Thank
yeah.
you, Gabrielle. We have Misty in the chat said, I run into this regularly with the people that I serve. I let them run the conversation. When trying to get my older residents to get involved in new activities and programming before planning things on their own, I will ask them, what would you like to see? What time would you like to have the activity? Letting them have a lot of say and they feel a bit more connected, that they have a say in the thing that has been the experience. It can be a struggle at times, is what Misty said. Thank you, Misty, for sharing that. And then let's see, Kyle, you want to come on and share a comment or
Yeah,
question?
thank you, Pam. So, just circling back to what Gabrielle said a little bit ago, and also I think it was Melissa maybe that commented on that. Um, there's something that happened in my family that's really we appreciated it so much, but more so after the fact. When my grandma passed away, uh, some of my aunt and uncle had decided to get her a book that was it was called My Grandmother's Life. Uh, Grandma, I want to know everything about you. And it's $11. It's at Walmart. You can pick it up. That book, just if they're willing to take the time and fill out some of the answers in that book about their past events in their life and things like that, you can unlock so many doors with that knowledge. You know, you could build on those experiences if you have that knowledge while they're still with us, and you're having trouble connecting, like Gabrielle was saying. You know, you could maybe talk them into going to a place that they used to visit, or taking them to their favorite food that they used to enjoy, or something that, you know, because they're living in a world that's changed so much, and trying to connect them with some familiarity can be the key that unlocks their heart in some situations. So I'll just say that thought to pass on. But that's an $11 way. You know, Melissa was talking about the PowerPoint presentation and those things. That's all amazing stuff that you can use um, to connect with these individuals who feel like they're living in a world that doesn't belong to them, if that makes sense.
Thank you so much, Kyle. I
Yes.
think we're going to end it there. Oh, Justin?
Can I ask? So, I think these are all great conversations, and I love the creativity. When do you know to refer to somebody, a higher authority, either a therapist or a chaplain, or I mean, I'm thinking about other professionals that can really help with this if, you know, if you're concerned.
Is this a question for me, Justin, or for the rest of the group?
I think I would start with you, but then, you know, I really want to make sure that, you know, sometimes people not having purpose, you know, can be scary.
Yes, yes, thank you. So I always am listening for like when someone is talking about when depressive words that may indicate depression, words that may indicate when people will say, um, I don't see a point in continuing. There will be additional statements that people will say. which will help me to, that's kind of the impetus for, I almost have like a little flag system in my head where there are some early signs that I might be listening for. And those would be signs that would indicate a referral to someone else. And a lot of times, Justin, I work with a lot of people that are actively working with therapists. And so their therapist is aware that I'm also working with them. And so one of the things I always lead with is do no harm. And so when I notice sometimes I work with people in a like a 3 hour session. So in 3 hours, I follow a Simon Sinek methodology. And then I have a longer coaching program. In that, Justin, there will be conversations of stories from their past. And sometimes they might be too hard for people. And in that case, that's where I will put the brakes on and suggest that we shift to a different story that may be less painful. So I'm constantly aware of that energy. You know how I talked about the observation and the words. If I'm noticing things, then I will facilitate a shift. And yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you. So Pam and I spent a lot of time fretting over a case discussion because we didn't have somebody step forward, and you all eased our minds in terms of a great discussion. So thank you very much. Ignore these next two slides because these are actually, I'm going to go back to that slide. So that's Kristine's contact information. This will be in the PowerPoint when I share it later. You can ignore these next two slides because these are the fictitious cases we came up with. But after this session, I'm going to take the recording and I'm going to take the PowerPoint presentation and all the resources that we're sharing, and it will be in iEcho. So if you go to today's session in iEcho later today, you'll see that there will be a PowerPoint presentation and a video recording that you can access. So I want to make sure that you know that that's available. And thank you so much, Kristine.
Thank you.
Okay, so I think we have had a very powerful time together, and a lot of this does just mold right into what KCH hopes to do in our communities. And a part of that is that we want to train and empower stakeholders and community members to provide hope for their and education for their communities. And I think learning these types of things and then how we may maybe instill some of these in our communities. I couldn't help but think as we were talking, what if we had a group of young people either from a faith-based organization or a club at school that's part of their health or social work type of thing, that would choose a nursing home or an assisted living to adopt and become that specific person that could talk to our folks about their story. And I could not help but think that sometimes when we are saying that when I talk, they won't listen. But maybe we need to be able to come up with some questions where they talk and then we model listening. And, you know, I can think of one situation, and I'm getting personal, but that's what I know best. My husband, when I married him, he was military and his voice was military. And sometimes he would just come out like he was talking to, you know, someone at work. And my first reaction was I just really got angry. And instead of me, after a while, instead of me saying, "Why are you talking like that to me?" I would say, "I feel like when you talk to me like that you're not respecting me as a spouse. Can you tell me a little bit more what's behind this voice?" And it ended up, you know, us really having some good, neat conversations that helped both of us. And not only did it pull out a problem in him, but it pulled out a problem in me as I connected that harsh voice to trauma as a child that I thought that I had worked through. And so sometimes when they are connecting to us in a harsh way, it may be something that they're reliving without even understanding that they are. So let's go on, and we're going to talk a little bit more about this. Knowledge sharing is caring. I just think that what we've done today has shown so much caring. And I think that we've already talked an awful lot about how what we've learned today, but if someone has got something specific that they'd like to say, I would like to give you the opportunity to do that, as well as I want us to think of ways that we can share what we've learned to do today in our communities. If we just leave this and say, oh, Kristine, that was such a great presentation. That was a good hour of my time. And it sits there, we've wasted Kristine's time and ours too. We need an action plan now. What are we going to do with what we've learned? So I'll be quiet and just give you a moment to either unmute or put in the chat, and Justin and Pam will help me with that. So what did you learn and how can you share it?
This is Melissa. I'm not shy.
Good.
One of the things that I want to do is look at communities that have aging friendly services or resources, whether it's formal or informal, and see what the business model is, see how that's funded, and see the feasibility of presenting at least to local government or presenting to whomever runs these in the communities, and see if we can't create something similar in communities without those resources. I know there's going to be a lot of challenges. Transportation is going to be a challenge. Rural areas are going to be a challenge, but I think that we're becoming a much older state by population, and we're going to have to do something to meet the needs of our population. I have a counterpart in mental health. I'm in substance use, and so that's one of our directives. So I think I can leverage that and try to at least come up with a proposal. So that is my goal.
There you go. And thank you so much for sharing that, and keep us informed. And you know, if you need some help, maybe someone would be able to guide you a little bit. I know we've had a little experience in trying to help with the age-friendly community. So
I would love that. Thank you so
good
much.
for you. I'm so proud to hear that you're going to be doing something like that. Okay. Okay, someone go ahead if someone would read what is up there.
Yeah, so Destiny said that listing resources available and passing out pamphlets or posting flyers around, it comes down to communication and talking about these resources. And then Tiffany asked about the name of the book that was mentioned, and the book was A Grandmother's Life. I Want to Know Everything About You.
Mhm. Yeah, that's so funny. I just picked up one about a mom's life, and I'm going to do it myself for my child. Not necessarily going to give it to him now, but anyway, I think that's interesting. Just noticed that. Okay, anyone else?
And there was a comment. Oh, Kristine, do you want to say what you put in the chat?
Yes, I would thank you. I was just thinking for that specific, looking at community aging resources, feasibility, and so forth. I used to actually have a team member that was responsible for writing for grants, different, however, for funding. And he is so personable and he loves helping others. So if you have some ideas that you just want to bounce some ideas from him, I am happy to connect the two of you.
Oh, thank you so much. That's community.
Oh, there
That's
we go.
collaboration. That's what we want.
I would love that. Thank you so much.
Yeah.
And Susan commented that she would share information with classmates.
Okay. All righty. I guess you can go on, Justin.
There's actually another comment.
I see it, but I can't see
Here it
it.
says Carla. Carla said, learn to engage with others and ask about interests that they have done in the past and or would like to do now, perhaps to gently guide them into becoming more social by example and to provide incentives to becoming engaged. I try to do that to the seniors that I work with now. It works sometimes to get them to think about becoming social with others instead of spending so much time alone. Now,
Right.
thank you, Carla, for that. I just started reading a book called The Art of Gathering. Actually, at Age Friendly Louisville, we had one of our colleagues tell Justin and I to look into this book, The Art of Gathering. So I've got it on my Libby app, and that's something else that talks about social connection. And so there's another book that folks might want to check out.
The Art of Gathering. Yes, that does sound really good. I wonder if it's in big print. Not many books are, unfortunately. Okay, so now I want to give you an opportunity if you have got some events that you would like us to know about or some concerns that maybe you would like to share that's going on in your community and let us talk about how we may work together. Has anyone got anything there?
So I just want to share that National Healthcare Decisions Day is coming up on April 16th. It's an annual recognition of the importance of having end-of-life conversations and advanced care planning conversations. I'm already talking to a couple people on our staff and a student about doing some community things. But if you would like to learn more about doing advanced care planning in your communities, please reach out and I can help share resources. This year, National Healthcare Decision Day falls on the start of our Optimal Aging Conference, so I won't be able to do things specifically on that day, but I would love and be more than happy to share resources and ideas for how you can engage either people in your work or in your community or whatever really meets your needs.
And how old should you be, Justin, when you do that?
How old? So in my fantasy world, people start having this conversation with their kids when they go off to college. But and then revisiting that over the course of the lifespan when they get married and they have changes in their life and they have, different important things come up. But the best idea is to not have this conversation in a crisis for the first time. Hopefully, if you're ever in a crisis situation, you've had this conversation enough that you feel prepared and you've been able to think about it a little bit much, so I would say that, it's never too late until it is. So I would encourage people to have it early and frequently.
Thank you, Justin. I set you up because I believe that very much, and I know you do. Okay, so let's go on to our next slide. All righty, so I want to talk to you about some things that will be happening with us at Traeger Institute. And also, I would encourage you, if any of you have flyers of events that you would like us to know about, if you send those ahead of time to Justin, he'll make sure that this gets out to everybody. So we do have what we call My Health Matters, and so does yours, which is a health education and support group that meets every Monday night. And this coming Monday night, we're going to have our own Misty Watkins, who even spoke a little bit today or else was in the chat, talking about don't let blood pressure win, take charge and begin. And then you can see that as you look on down for the month of March, we've got more really great speakers coming to be with us. So we hope that you'll spend an hour with us on Monday night by Zoom. And maybe you can even encourage some of your folks that don't have community right now, that this is just a small step toward beginning to get acquainted with additional people. And it's pretty, this is kind of an innocent way to get started. They don't have to be in the middle of a whole bunch of people. Okay. So another thing that we have at Traeger is our diabetes self-management program. And as you can see, we've got classes coming up for that. There's actually that one on a Thursday evening, but there's two before that. I don't know if is it the next slide or did I
So
just
Mona, I thought you said that the registration ended on Thursday for the one that's getting ready to start.
no. Okay, no. Okay, that's all right. But we have one starting on February 6th, I believe it is. Let me see if I can grab it real quick. No, March 3rd. through April 7th and March 4th through April 8th is our next two classes. I think you're getting Flourishing Together and Diabetes Self-Management mixed up. So we actually had three classes that'll be starting this spring, and we'll just make sure that you get this additional information when things are sent out. But this class is a really great class, and it's a free class. Also, it's kind of another innocent way to be able to start joining others and understanding that some people are living with diabetes just like they are and how they're managing it. And we're going to be talking about healthy eating, physical activity, the importance of monitoring, the importance of an action plan, and know what we're going to be doing and have strategies when things don't go smoothly. And also, a very important component of diabetes is stress management to be able to avoid the complications. And then we're going to talk about problem solving. So if you are interested, actually, this diabetes self-management interest survey that is on here would have the 3 dates on it, I'm fairly sure. But otherwise, we will make sure that you get that information. Okay, so go on to the next. All righty, so for the Flourishing Together, we are in the process of a class now, but it's too late to join that one. But we will be starting more. We don't have a date yet, but it'll probably be late spring, early summer. And one of the things with the Flourishing Together class is you can come solo or you can come with family members. This particular one, it can be generational. It doesn't have to be just aging folks. And we have a free 8-week class, and you can invite people to join with you. And we're going to learn kind of a holistic point of view of how to be healthy. We're going to talk about practical ways to eat healthier, become more active, and learn how to manage and prevent chronic disease. And it's going to be not only a safe and encouraging social environment, but it's going to be a fun one. We just do all kinds of crazy things together. If you meet some of the people that have had class with me, they'll talk to you about the ants go marching one by one, hurrah, hooray. And we do silly things, but we learn, and that's what counts. So let's go on. They are over Zoom. Yes, these are all Zoom right now. Now, occasionally we do have an in-person one, but right now these are all planned as Zoom. Okay, so I want to talk to you a little bit more about some of the things that's going on at Traeger. Our Flourish program, that's actually one of our it's our flagship. That's what we're all about. And we work with people to help them be able to manage multiple chronic conditions. And we want them to have this satisfaction. We want them to have this joy in life. And so we have a lot of different ways that we can help them with that. Our caregiver program is designed for people who are taking care of someone 60 plus or someone with dementia at any age, and they are there to provide support and resources. Again, there is a survey that you can fill out, and somebody will get back with you very shortly. We have a virtual friendly visitor program, and this is designed for that person who may be experiencing some isolation and loneliness, and our practicum students will call them as is prescribed, whether it's once a week or once every other week, whatever. And it's a great program to help folks. Now, of course, there is an assessment done, and if that person needs further help, we know the next steps for that as well. The same thing with Pearls is for our adults that are 60 and above, and helps them rediscover joy, purpose, and connection. And it's a no-cost counseling program. Again, our practicum students, under good supervision, are doing these programs. Okay. Okay, are you doing this one, Justin?
Sure. So if you're interested in learning more about caring for older adults and helping them flourish, we would invite you to become an optimal aging scholar. Here are basically you're going to gain some valuable training in geriatric care, learn about age-friendly healthcare practices, and take part in practice transformation as part of an interdisciplinary team. participating in a Project Echo is one of the requirements, but then we have some other ways that you can get a deeper dive into age-friendly healthcare, and eventually participate in our Optimal Aging Conference. The cohort is closed for this spring, but we'll be starting it again later this summer. So please reach out, and I can connect you with Sophia if you'd like to learn more. Again, if you've accessed the PowerPoint after today's session, you can also email Sophia there. And then I'll go ahead and talk about our Flourish Care Centers of Excellence. We're really working in 3 areas around the state with our area development districts, the KIPTA region, the Cumberland Valley Area Development, and Barren River Area Development Districts, to really work around improving coordinated care when older adults move between hospitals, rehab centers, and home. So we're collaborating with local resources in those areas. Riley is coordinating our KIPTA region. Chandler is coordinating the Cumberland Valley District, and Heather is coordinating our Barren River District. So we're really working to improve care of older adults in 3 regions of Kentucky, where we're really trying to create great resources and connections there. You can see the contact information and when they meet. These are really excellent resources. So we invite you to participate, and we also invite, please reach out if you have more questions.
And in closing, I'll just simply read our pledge as a member of KCHC, and you are one now, since you're a part of the ECHO. Our goal is to become an effective state coalition working with community members and community-based organizations to empower our state to become a healthier and compassionate people. Therefore, we will practice self-care and model healthy behaviors to our families, our coworkers, and members of our communities. And I will turn it back over to Justin for our evaluation and this. I think we already did this, didn't we?
Yeah, well, no, just letting people know that our next session is going to be on suicide in later life, recognizing risk and responding with compassion on March 20th. So hope you will mark your calendars, and we'll see you then. And I'm going to stop sharing just for a second so I can get the QR code. Sorry, my cat is licking my hand. The Optimal Aging Clinic is closed today, so I'm doing this from home, and my cat typically isn't at the office with me, so give me just a second. Sorry about that. All right, so you can either use the QR code, or here is the link for today's evaluation. A reminder, if you would like a participation certificate, or if you would like continuing education for community health workers or social workers, you must complete the evaluation. I will hang out if you have any issues. Otherwise, I hope you have a great rest of your day.
And thank you so much, Kristine.